This is the first time that I know of that judgment's been broken and someone made a bad call. This is not a hypothetical situation. We're here because somebody got hurt, and we're not here to attack.
Nurse anesthetists will argue that they, as one of you have mentioned, that, well, they already do similar procedures. They place needles in patients and they do epidurals, and therefore steroid epidural injections is very similar to a labor epidural, so what is the difference?
We are very specifically trained to place needles in or around the spinal column on an everyday basis. We do these things.
I may choose to go out and get a pilot's license and fly my own private plane, but in no way does that qualify me to show up at an airport or an airline and say, I know how to fly a plane. It's very similar. It has wings, it has a throttle, it has controls, and so therefore they're similar. That would be a gross underappreciation of the differences. And to say labor epidural and a steroid epidural injection or management of those pain procedures around the spinal cord are similar enough that they should be equated in anybody's mind as either, again, a gross exaggeration or an underappreciation of the severity of what they're attempting to do, both of which.
A very specific question. There is a new fellowship training program for CRNAs to do this. It's based out of Minnesota. The question is, do you think this is sufficient to guarantee that the patient's safety is assured?
Just a couple years ago when you passed this bill, you took the unusual step of protecting certain procedures and declaring that only physicians could perform these things, these few injections. Rarely does that happen. Now here we are 2 years later, and there's an attempt to take off a sunset, and at the time the argument was, well, the CRNAs may at some point in the future be able to find a training program that would allow them the education to perform these complicated procedures. So it's my understanding that they have found a small, obscure university in Minnesota that offers this certification in an online capacity, yet this university does not accept Missouri students. We feel that these procedures still fall squarely within the purview of the practice of medicine, and we ask you to protect them.
This is existing law, and your committee in the Senate and the legislature is being asked whether or not you think it's safe for this law to expire. And looking at whether or not there's been enough training and professionals out there to perform these procedures that were not present or did not have that training 3 years ago. And it is the opinion of the Missouri Society of Anesthesiologists as well as the Missouri Society of Interventional Pain Physicians that you are putting unexpected patients at extreme risk if you let this law expire under the status quo of our current training.
We do not want to be responsible for Missourians being injured. There is a program, it's medical school for these particular procedures. And one other thing.